Once upon a time, in a busy and notorious city called Ajegunle, located in Lagos, Nigeria, a place where life was noisy, rough, and always in motion. The streets smelled of roasted corn and petrol, children playing around the streets, market women selling their goods. My name is Mira, and I grew up in a two-room face-me-I-face-you compound near Boundary Market. My mother was a trader who sold vegetables by the roadside, while my father, Mr. Augustine, was a commercial bus driver, popularly known as Driver Man. To outsiders, he was jovial, always laughing with them, greeting neighbors, and always cracking dry jokes. But behind closed doors, he was a different man, one with demons I did not understand. I was only 8 years old when my innocence was stolen. It began with silence. My mother had traveled to her village in Imo State for her cousin's burial. She was to be gone for a week. That first night without her, my father called me into their bedroom. I thought he just missed me. I was still in my nightgown when he asked me to lie beside him. Mira, come and sleep with Daddy. I don't want to be alone, my father said. At first, it felt normal. I laid beside him quietly, staring at the cracked ceiling and listening to the ceiling fan that rolled. But then, I felt his hands sliding across my chest. I froze. Daddy, what are you doing? I asked. Don't shout. My father said this is how fathers show love to their daughters. I was too young to understand too, shocked to resist. That night was the first of many. Each time Mama was away, he would call me again. It became a routine he always do. When Mama returned a week later, I tried to tell her, Mommy, Daddy touched me somehow. She asked, how? He slept with me. She slapped me on my face before I could finish. Shut up your mouth, you this small winch. Do you want to scatter my marriage? You must be dreaming nonsense. Don't ever say that again. That was the day I learned how dangerous the truth could be. From that day on, I kept quiet. But the nightmares did not stop. The shame, the guilt, the confusion, they followed me to school. Even inside the church, I stopped playing with boys. I stopped laughing. I became withdrawn and angry, always staring into space like someone searching for answers in a broken world. At school, I could not concentrate. I failed my exams, and teachers would flog me, thinking I was just lazy. Nobody knew what was eating me alive. Not even my best friend, Omolora, could understand why I suddenly became bitter and snappy. One night, when I was about 11, he brought a bottle of dry gin home and reek of alcohol. I knew what was coming. As I hid behind the kitchen curtain, I made a vow, one I kept locked in my soul for years. I will never let any man touch me again, ever. I will hurt them before they hurt me. That night, I wanted to die. I even drank a little bleach when everyone was asleep. But when I woke up the next morning, vomiting and weak, no one noticed. Not my mother, who was too busy keeping up appearances. Not the neighbors, who praised my father as a hardworking man. Even the church elders, who always referred to him as Brother Augustine, the generous driver. I became a ghost in my own body, a walking secret, a silent scream. As I stepped into teenagehood, the damage wasn't. I began to see men as predators, users and destroyers. I hated them all. Every glance at them felt like a threat. Every smile felt like manipulation. By the time I was 16, my hatred had turned into power. If a man tried to come close to me, I would find ways to mock, hurt, or humiliate him. I no longer feared them. I wanted revenge. But deep down, I was still that little girl, crying silently in the dark. And this was the beginning of my war. Ajegule Street never changed, but I did. By the time I turned 17, I had grown into a beautiful young woman, tall, caramel skin, with fierce eyes, and a boldness that scared most boys away. My curves came early, and the boys in the area would call me anytime I passed. Fine girl, abeg smile small now. You too fresh. Wetin be your name? I never smiled back. My face was always blank. I was no longer the crying child in the dark. I was eyes. I finished secondary school with average results and refused to go to any university. I told my mother I did not want to waste her money, but deep down, I just did not want to sit in my classroom, surrounded by men who might see me as weak. Instead, I started working in a small salon near Wilma bus stop, helping to braid hair and mix relaxers. It was better than staying home with my parents, especially with my father always watching me like a hawk. By now, he no longer touched me, not physically, but the emotional damage. That never stopped. He will still call me his angel, still wink at me when Mama wasn't looking. And Mama, she pretended everything was fine. She never asked questions. She never apologized. I had no respect left for her. I hated her just as much. At the salon, I saw things. I listened. I watched women use their bodies to get things from men. Money, phones, clothes. I began to understand how the world worked. If I couldn't trust men, if they were all like my father, then I will learn how to use them before they use me. And so it began. The first man I used was Uncle Tayo, my landlord's son. He had just come back from Ghana and was always trying to show off with his fake accent, his cheap perfume, and his borrowed car. He would stand outside our compound, shirtless, hoping someone will notice his muscles. One evening, I walked past him wearing a tight black gown I borrowed from my friend Omolora. I smiled for the first time in months. He noticed. By the weekend, he had given me 15,000 for data and upkeep. The next week, I asked for a new phone. He sent it with his friend. I never even kissed him. I just heard him sweet words, made him feel powerful, and then ghosted him. I felt victorious. I felt in control. It became my thing. There was Joshua, a youth corper, posted to Ajengule Primary School. He was sweet and soft-spoken, the kind of guy who would write poems and talk about real love. At first, he reminded me of safety. He would wait outside the saloon every evening, holding gala and malt for me, trying to win my heart. I let him try. I let him fall. And when I sensed that he was really beginning to love me, I crushed him. I told him he was too soft, that I like real men, that he was boring and too emotional. He begged me to stay. He cried the day I walked away, but I did not care. Inside me was still that little girl screaming in the dark, and now she had found her weapon, coldness. By the time I turned 17, I had already dated 7 different men. I never let any of them touch me. Not fully. I would tease, flirt, collect, and disappear. My friends started calling me Iron Lady, but they did not know the real reason why I hated closeness. They did not know that anytime a man tried to kiss me, my mind will flash back to my father's hand, rough, smelling, forcing itself on my 8-year-old skin. They did not know that my body froze every time a man tried to get close. They did not know that I sometimes cried after leading a man on, not because I felt guilty, but because I wish I could be normal. I was broken, but I looked whole. One night, I was in the saloon, locking up the street was quiet, just the occasional shout from distant beer parlors. I looked at my reflection in the saloon mirror and whispered, "Is this all I will ever be? A bitter girl, punishing men for what one man did." Tears rolled down my cheeks. I did not weep them. I went home late that night. My father was sitting outside drunk. He looked at me and said, "Mira, come here now. Come and greet your daddy." I looked at him and walked past. I did not know what hurt more, that he still tried to act normal, or that my mother still acted like nothing had ever happened. But one thing was clear: I would never forgive him, and because of him, I would never forgive any man. By the time I was 21, I had perfected the game. I knew what to say to make a man chase me. I knew when to act helpless, when to act confident, when to cry and when to smile. I had learned to manipulate like a pro, and Ajegule became too small for me. I wanted bigger prey, men with money, men with ego, men who thought they could buy anything, even me. That is when I met Chief Benson. Chief Benson was in his mid-50s, fat, dark-skinned, and always dressed in abada. His perfume always arrived 5 minutes before he did. He owned a block of flats in Surulere, a poultry farm in Badagry, and several chains of provision stores across Lagos. He drove a white Lexus and was known in our area as the man with the money. I met him through Omolora. She was already sleeping with one of his friends. So one day, she said, "Mira, this man go like you die. You fit chop am dry. He gets money scattered." At first, I refused. Other men reminded me too much of my father. But when I saw Chief Benson, saw the way he looked at me like I was some precious possession he must own, I knew I had found my next mission. I smiled at him. That was all it took. He started visiting the saloon just to see me. He would sit on a plastic chair with his leg crossed and talk about how beautiful I was. "My dear girls, like you should not suffer. What are you doing in a place like this? You are meant to be driving Benz, going to Dubai," Chief Benson told me. I gave him small smiles. He started dropping envelopes, 50,000 one week, 100,000 the next. Then he offered to rent me a self-contained apartment in Aguda. I accepted. It was the first time I truly lived alone. I was free from my parents, free from my father's eyes, free from my mother's silence. I decorated the room with white curtains, a pink rug, and a mirror that covered an entire wall. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. But freedom came with a cost. Chief Benson started asking for returns. He would call at night, "Mira, I'm coming over. Prepare for me." I always had excuses. "I am on my period. I am not feeling well. I am at my cousin's place," I always told him. At first, he was patient, but patience is not something rich men are known for. One night, he came unannounced. I heard a knock, then a louder one. I looked through the hole. It was him. He was drunk, his eyes red. I opened the door halfway and tried to talk through the crack. "Chief, I'm not feeling well tonight, please." But he pushed the door and stepped inside. That was when I realized I had made a mistake. "Do you think I'm stupid?" he shouted. "You think you can collect my money and be forming virgin?" He grabbed my wrist. I screamed, "Leave me alone," but he pushed me against the wall. I fought. He slapped me twice. Tears filled my eyes. The past flashed before me. My father's voice, my mother's silence, my helpless 8-year-old self. But something snapped in me that night, something dark and fierce. I reached for the flower vase on the shelf and smashed it on his head. He fell. Blood flowed. I stood over him, breathing heavily. My hands were shaking. He did not die, but he was rushed to the hospital. I packed my things that night and fled back to Ajegule. Word spread quickly. Omolora stopped talking to me. The saloon owner told me not to return. Mama blamed me for biting the hand that fed me, but I did not care. I did not regret it. For once, I fought back, and even though fear gripped me, and I knew I had made an enemy, I also felt powerful. Men are not gods. They bleed too. After that night, something changed in me again. I became colder. I did not care about love. I did not care about friendship. All I wanted was to win, to rise, to feel powerless. Never. But deep inside, that small broken girl still cried. She cried every night I slept alone in my tiny room, staring at the ceiling. She cried whenever I touched my own body and felt disgust instead of desire. She cried when I watched other girls laugh with their fathers or post birthday messages like my first love. And I remember the man who destroyed my first touch of love. I had everything now: money, men begging for attention, fake friends who envied me, but I did not have peace, and I fear I never would. After the Chief Benson incident, I stopped trusting even the money. I stayed low for a while in Ajegule, working in a smaller salon behind Tolu complex. Life became basic again. No flashy cars, no Dubai dreams, no men in Abada promising heaven. I kept to myself. I was still beautiful, still cold, still unreachable. But then Daniel walked into my life quietly. He wasn't rich, he wasn't flashy. He was just a soft-spoken tailor who rented the small shop next to ours. Young, about 27 years, with the kind of eyes that saw deeper than your body. His customers loved him because he listened, paid attention to detail, and never shouted. In Ajegule, where men often use their voices like weapons, Daniel's silence was rare and healing. At first, I ignored him. Then, one rainy evening, he surprised me. I had closed late and was stranded because of the heavy rainfall. My umbrella was useless, broken and bent like most things in my life. Daniel stepped out of his shop with a big umbrella and said, "Let me walk you." I almost hissed, but something in his tone was too kind to reject. We walked in silence, no flirting, just calm footsteps under shared shelter. When we reached my gate, I said thank you and turned. He said, "You don't talk much, but I hope you are okay." That one sentence followed me into bed. No man had ever asked if I was okay without wanting something in return. The next day, he dropped small puff-puffs at the entrance of my shop. The day after that, cold Fanta. Then a piece of suya. It was not expensive, but it was consistent. And slowly, I began to smile. Not the fake smiles I gave to fools with money. Not the sarcastic ones I used to mock weak men, but real soft smiles, the kind I thought I had lost. One evening, he said, "I know you have been through something. I don't know what, but I see it in your eyes." I did not respond. I couldn't. How could I tell him that I was a battlefield of pain and rage, that I had used and dumped men just to feel powerful again, that the person he was smiling at was a shell? So I avoided him for weeks. I blocked him emotionally, hoping he would give up, but he did not. He kept his distance, kept being kind, kept showing up without forcing his way in, and I started craving his presence more than I was comfortably admitting. One night, I found myself crying, not out of pain, but confusion. Could it be that not all men were like my father? Could it be that someone could love without touching, give without taking? Could I still be worthy of softness? I tried to push the thought away. I told myself it was all fake, a trick, a set-up, a new trap, but my heart did not believe me anymore. One Friday night, I asked Daniel to take a walk with me down Boundary Road. We walked for an hour, and I finally told him my story. Everything, the abuse, my mother's betrayal, my hatred for men, the manipulation, the lies, the anger, the bleeding spirit. I expected him to leave after that, but he did not. He just held my hand and said softly, "You are not your past." No man had ever told me that before. I cried for the first time in someone's arms, and for the first time in my life, I was not ashamed of it. The days that followed were slow and healing. Daniel did not rush me. He respected my space. He gave me the kind of love I never thought existed. Patient, gentle, consistent. But even with all of that, a part of me was still scared, because healing does not happen in one chapter. It was a hot afternoon in Ajegule. I was sitting alone in my room, the fan spinning lazily above me. Daniel had just left after dropping some bread and beans. He did not stay long. He never pressured me, never asked for more than I could give. And yet, I knew he loved me deeply, but I also knew something was still holding me back, something that lived in my chest like a stone. My father. For years, I avoided the word forgiveness. I told myself that some people did not deserve it, that it would make me weak, that forgiving him would mean accepting what he did. But I had grown. I had loved. I have seen that healing is not forgetting, it's not pretending, it is choosing peace over pain. That day, I sat at my plastic table and took a pen. I began to write, not to send, not to deliver, but to let go. And I wrote, "Dear Daddy, you stole something from me, something I can never get back. You broke my childhood, crushed my trust, turned my body into a prison. You made me hate men. You made me hate myself. And Mama, she let it happen. She looked away. She chose you over me. For years, I used men just to feel in control. I lied, manipulated, seduced and destroyed, thinking I was winning. But inside, I was empty, scared and angry. You made me believe I would never be loved the right way. But guess what? You were wrong. Because someone loves me now. Not for my body, not for what I can give, but for who I am. His name is Daniel. He is not perfect, but he is kind. He is the proof that not all men are like you. So today, I choose to stop carrying you around in my spirit like a shadow. I won't waste my future dragging the waste of your wickedness. I am not forgiving you because you deserve it. I am forgiving you because I do. I deserve peace. I deserve joy. I deserve freedom. Goodbye, Daddy. I am done being your victim. From Mira. I folded the paper and burned it in an empty tomato can. As the smoke rise and disappear, I felt something loosen in my chest, like a window opening after years of darkness. That evening, I called Daniel. I told him I wanted to try. Not perfectly, not quickly, but I wanted to try love, real love. He came over quietly and held my hand. He did not say much, just smiled and said, "You are stronger than you think." I smiled back. For once, not out of power or pride, but out of peace. 3 years later, I now run my own salon in Surulere called Mira's Touch. Women came not just for hair, but for healing. We laugh, we cry, we share our stories. I mentor young girls who have gone through pain. I teach them that survival is not shame. Daniel and I are still together. He's my partner, my friend, and slowly the wounds have become scars. They are still there, but they no longer bleed. I may not forget what my father did, but I am no longer his prisoner. I am free. We have come to the end of this story. If you learn one or two from this story, please support me by liking my video, comment your thoughts about it, share, and kindly click on the subscribe button. See you in my next story. Thank you.